This video is brought to you by TomToc. So you've just bought your new Mac. First of all, congratulations. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step guide on how to properly set up a new Mac, and after that, I'll show you some essential first things to do, such as key settings to change, new features to unlock, plus plenty of tips and tricks along the way to ultimately help make your experience using your Mac even better. Now, I'll be demonstrating this on my new MacBook Air, but this video also applies to the MacBook Pro, iMac, Mac Mini, basically all Macs. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see, I've got my new MacBook Air here ready to be set up, and I'm going to be going through the process step by step so you can follow along from home. Now, the first step that I definitely recommend you do is to plug in your charger. Now, chances are your MacBook will come with some charge, but it may not be enough, and the last thing you want is for your MacBook to shut down while we're doing this setup process. So to avoid that from happening, you want to make sure that your charger is plugged in. Now, next, you want to open up your MacBook, and it's going to automatically turn on, and you'll enter the hello screen, after which you can simply press continue or the spacebar, and that's going to bring you to this screen we see right here, allowing us to select our language. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select English and then press on the arrow here and make sure to click on the touchpad rather than tap. Now, tap won't be on by default. This is something that we're going to add later on in the video. And then we'll give it a second to load, and after that, we get to choose our country or region. So in this case, we are in the United Kingdom. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. I'd love to hear where around the world you are all from. And if you are enjoying this video so far, a like on the video and of course a sub to the channel would be amazing. And here we get to choose whether we want to add any accessibility settings. This is for people who are, say, vision or hearing impaired, but this is something we're going to leave for now. So we'll tap on not now. And at this stage, we're going to select our Wi-Fi network, as you will need to connect to a Wi-Fi network in order to activate your Mac. So on this list here, you want to find your network and then type in the password if you have it. So once your Wi-Fi is connected, we get to review Apple's data and privacy policy. If you do want to read more, you can tap on learn more. But for now, we're going to click on continue. And then here we have migration assistant. Now, this is for users if, say, you have a time machine backup of your Mac already ready and instead want to restore from that. You're also able to restore from a Windows PC if you like to move over some data. Now, in this case, I'm going to assume this Mac is your new Mac and you want to just set up a blank slate and have a clean Mac with no old files on it. And in that case, we're going to click on not now here in the bottom left corner. And here we go. So this is a pretty crucial step. This is where you want to log into your Apple ID. Now, if you don't have one, I definitely recommend you make one. You can tap on the second option here to create an Apple ID. This is going to make sure things like your contacts, your calendar are going to be all synced across all your Apple devices. It's also going to be necessary for things like your keychain to save your passwords, as well as being able to get purchases, say, from the music store or the app store as well. So if you already have an Apple ID, make sure to log in at this point. Here you want to type in the email address that is associated with the ID. And again, if you don't have one, I definitely recommend you create one now. And once you've typed in your email, you can also type in your password, and then we'll go ahead and tap on continue. Now, if you have two-factor authentication set up like I do, you'll be asked to enter in a 6-digit code with which you will get a notification on one of your other Apple devices. You can see here on my iPhone, I have one. I'm going to tap on allow, and that's then going to show me that 6-digit code which you now want to enter into your MacBook. It is very good to see Apple add these additional layers of security, making it that much more secure and avoid others from entering your Apple ID if, of course, they are not permitted to do so. Now, in this case, next, we're going to get the terms of agreement, and you want to make sure to either read them or at least tick the check mark and say that you've read them, like I'm sure 99% of us do. I know I almost always do. And after that, we're going to give it a second to load. And right here is where we get to set up the account for our Mac. So it's going to already pick your name based on what's associated with your Apple ID. However, you can also set a separate account name if you like. We can even change the account logo or the icon. Here we have the baseball. I always like the Earth. Let me see if they still have that one here under suggestions. There it is. I always like this Earth one. Somehow, ever since my first Mac, I've always used that one, so I've kind of kept it the same. And after that, you're going to be required to enter in a password. Now, you can choose a password that's shorter or longer. My advice is to make it as long as possible, have both capitals, non-caps, and well as some numbers and special characters to really make it difficult for anyone to brute force their way in if that ever were to happen. So you want to make sure to type that here, and then, of course, second time over here to verify that password. Fantastic. And then after that, you also have the option to add in a hint. This is up to you. I prefer not to. And then we also have the option to allow or not allow your Apple ID to reset this password. Now, in this case, I will allow that, as I think the Apple ID is a very secure method of logging in. Again, if you have two-factor authentication on, it'll be tied to your number, etc. So it's very safe. And in this case here, should you ever be locked out of your Mac, you can find your way back in. So after that's done, we're going to go ahead and tap on continue and give that a second to create the account. All right, so this here is a pretty crucial step. Make this your new Mac, and here, as you can see, it's got a bunch of settings. Now, for me, it's sort of predetermined a lot of these settings because I have set up a Mac before. However, if I were to be doing this for the first time, this wouldn't be the case. So in this case, I'm going to tap on Customize Settings so that it looks like exactly the way you should see it right now as you're setting up your Mac. So first, we get to determine our location services, and this is something that I do enable primarily for things like your weather, your calendar, as well as your Maps application. For these to properly function, you want to make sure that location services is on. Go ahead and tap on continue here. And here we have analytics. Now, this one really is personal preference, whether you want to share your analytics with Apple or not. Personally, I don't see any reason for it. And I think it's just less data to be transferred between Apple and my Mac. It even saves a tiny bit of storage and battery. So especially for privacy reasons, I prefer to keep this off. And then here we have screen time. Now, screen time is something that I do like to activate. I do think it's useful to see how much you're using your computer, and then more specifically, which apps you are using if, say, you are trying to cut down your screen time, or just simply look at the data. I really like looking at numbers and data, so this I find quite fascinating. So we'll go ahead and tap on continue. And then we have Siri. Now, Siri is, I think, quite useful for simple tasks like to create a reminder, ask for the temperature, or ask a simple conversion question too. So I do enable Siri, as I do use this from time to time on my Mac. We'll go ahead and tap on continue here, and then we'll tap continue once more. And now what we're going to do is set up Hey Siri. Now, this is going to allow you to remotely activate your Siri. Now, you may know from watching other videos of mine, this is a feature that sometimes I do like to turn off, especially on my iPhone or on my Apple Watch. One of the few devices that I do like to have it on is my MacBook, primarily because this is always plugged in and on my desk. It makes it hands-free and easy to ask Siri for a question. So first, we're going to go ahead and say these prompts. So let's say, Siri, what's the weather like? Siri, set a timer for 3 minutes. Siri, play some music. Awesome. So after those prompts, I've done around, I think, 5 or 6 of them. Siri is now ready and will now recognize my voice. So we can go ahead and tap on continue here. And then we also have the ability to, or to choose rather, we want to share those Siri recordings with Apple or not. I'm going to say not now. I don't want to share this with Apple. Similarly, like to those, to the Mac analytics, I prefer to not share that. All right. So here we have some really essential settings that you want to make sure you get right. And this is your Firewall disk encryption. Now, this is going to add an additional layer of security to your disk, not just requiring your password to log in to access the data, but then actually encrypt the individual pieces of data, meaning that even if someone is able to bypass that initial password and sort of hack their way into your solid state drive, the data will still be encrypted. So this is something that I definitely recommend you turn on. It does technically make certain actions a little bit slower, like writing or reading data, but because these solid state drives in these MacBooks, especially in recent years, have become so fast, personally, it is something that I never noticed, and I still think they absolutely fly and perform super, super fast. And realistically, I think most people are never going to notice this in day-to-day use, and it's highly worth doing for that extra layer of security. So I definitely recommend you turn this one on to activate the Firewall. And because the Firewall adds that additional layer of encryption to decrypt those files, you do have the ability to allow your iCloud accounts to do so. And that's something that I do recommend as sort of a fail-safe should you ever be locked out of your computer. So I suggest you turn on both of these settings and tap continue. And this brings us to Touch ID. Now, the Touch ID sensor, you'll find that on the top right of your keyboard on top of your power button. And this allows you to very quickly log into your computer using just your fingerprint. So this is something I definitely suggest you set up. So I'm going to quickly show you how this is done. So you want to simply take your finger, I would suggest your index finger, and then gently rest it on the sensor, lift it, and then rest it again. And as you can see, gradually this graph here, or this little diagram, is going to fill. Then it's going to ask me to do the edges of my finger, and this will allow me to register my finger as well. Now, you do also have the option to add an additional finger. So I, for example, like to have both of my index fingers. You can do that too to make it easier to reach and to unlock your Mac. And this brings us to Apple Pay. Now, Apple Pay can be super useful. Say you were checking out online, I find more and more stores accept Apple Pay, will automatically fill in not just your card details, but also things like your shipping and billing address. Super convenient. But this is something that I'm not going to set up right now on camera. So instead, I'm going to do setup later. However, if you do want to set this up, simply tap next and make sure you have your cards handy, and then it will automatically enter in those details for you. But for now, I'm going to tap select later. Now, here we have the option to change the look of our Mac. So this is really the theme, whether we want light mode or dark mode. Or auto. Now, personally, I actually like to use auto, and this is what's going to cycle between both modes depending on the time of day or the position of the sun. We'll look more at that later. So for now, I suggest selecting auto. However, if you have a preference here, feel free to, of course, choose which you want. And here we go. Voila, your MacBook is now set up here and ready to go. Super awesome. So I hope this setup process was helpful for you, not just in showing you what I did to set up my Mac, but also why I chose each option and what the meaning was behind each to hopefully help you get that understanding and enable you to properly set up your MacBook in the way that is best for you. So now that your MacBook is properly set up and ready to use, next I want to get into some essential first things to do to help you get the most out of your MacBook. But first, to help your MacBook last for many years, it is so important to protect it with a good case or with a good bag. And this is where TomToc comes in. I've used TomToc products for over 2 years, so I was really excited when they reached out to partner on this video to showcase their A42 laptop bag and their A13 laptop case, available for all current MacBook Air and MacBook Pro models. Starting with the A42 laptop bag. Now this is perfect for daily commutes as well as when out traveling. You can carry it with a soft vegan leather handle or, like me, attach the adjustable shoulder pad. The bag is made of a recycled water-resistant fabric to protect against rain or accidental spills. It uses high-quality YKK zippers and features TomToc's corner armor protection for military-grade drop protection. I also really like how soft the interior is to protect your Mac from scratches. TomToc then went the extra mile by also adding in an organization system. On the front, there's 2 pockets to store your charger, phone, keys, and then on the back, there's a pocket for a notebook, letting you carry everything you need on the go. And then there's the A13 laptop case. It features all the same great durability and protection features as from the A42 laptop bag, but comes in at a smaller size for even more portable protection, while still packing TomToc's corner armor protection and still has a handy compartment on the front to store your charger and other essential accessories. As you can see, TomToc have thought of every detail, both for the bag as well as the sleeve, and this results in awesome protection and functionality. So to protect your MacBook with TomToc, be sure to head to the links in the description. Alright, now let's take a look at some key settings to change, new features to unlock, plus plenty of tips and tricks along the way to help make your experience using your Mac even better. So first, let's take a look at some essential settings to change, and what we're going to do is jump into the System Settings app, so that's this icon here in the dock. Alternatively, you can also click on the Apple logo in the top left, and then tap on System Settings like so, and that's going to bring up this window here. So first, I want to take a look at appearance. In the menu bar here, we're going to click on appearance, and then here we have once again the ability to change between light and dark mode. Let me just quickly show you what each looks like. So this here is light mode, and then this is dark mode. So I personally like to use dark mode at night and then light mode during the day. So that's what exactly what the auto setting will do. That's going to then change it depending on the time of day, and so that you're in dark mode at night and light mode during the day, as I find that just a little bit easier to read. And then beneath that, we also have the ability to change the accent color. So this here is going to be the color for menu. So for example, this is here blue at the moment. We can also change it to red. We can change it to green. Basically change it to your favorite color. Say you want to kind of contrast it with your wallpaper, or have the first option, which is multicolor, and then it's going to change depending on the app you are using. For example, here in settings, in most instances, it'll be blue, but then say in your music app, I believe it is sort of a pinkish red. But before we move further, one of the first things I do with any new Mac is adjust the trackpad, as there are some settings that are really quite annoying that I definitely want to change the moment I start using it. So let's go ahead and do that right away. So here on the right, we're going to scroll down to where we find the touchpad. That is the second to last option here on the bottom. And here, first of all, we have the ability to change the tracking speed. So by default, it's a little bit more on the slow side. So I like to have it actually one click to the right of the center. Means you can just move across your screen more quickly while moving less on your touchpad. We also have the ability to change the firmness of the click, so how much force is going to be required to actuate a click. Now I like to have it on light, as I find it allows me to click more quickly and apply less pressure as well. However, if you do find that, for example, causing some accidental clicks, you can of course adjust it to firm as well. And the next two settings here that I think are really important, one is going to be your secondary click. So how do you want a right click to actuate? As by default, it's going to be a click with 2 fingers, which I think is a little bit odd, not that natural. I prefer a more typical, or traditional rather, right click from the bottom right corner. So clicking on the bottom right corner of the trackpad is going to lead to a right click. And then secondly, we have tap to click, which is something that personally I really like. So instead of having to always click rather to tap, you can also simply tap the touchpad to actuate a click. So that is something I like to have on as well. And the next, if we go onto the scroll and zoom, now this is going to be really personal preference, but by default, the scrolling direction is going to be set to natural. So you can see that scrolling up on the touchpad will physically move you down on the web page or whatever document you're looking at. I think this is sort of the inverse of what I am used to or what I expect, so I turn this off. And now as you can see, scrolling down on the trackpad will bring you down on the web page, which I don't know, it's something I'm always used to, but to me also seems to make most sense. Scrolling down means going down, and then scrolling up is going to bring you up on the page. But again, this is going to be some personal preference here. And then from the touchpad, let's take a look at the keyboard. So that's in the menu right above it. So first of all, we have the key repeat rate. So this is how long do you want to press and hold on a key before it starts to repeat. I like to have mine here on the faster side. The same thing with the delay until repeat. I like to have it a little bit shorter, so it's just more snappy, more quick when I'm typing. And then we also have the ability to adjust the keyboard brightness automatically in low light. This is something that I always keep on, as this means it will always be visible. And we can also here manually change the brightness of the keyboard as well if you want that to be brighter or not. And we also have the ability to turn the keyboard backlight off after a certain period of inactivity. So this can be after a few minutes, or set it to never. If you are out to really save battery, I do suggest you set this to a shorter time period, like for example 30 seconds. And up next, I want to take a look at the dock. So this here is this bottom row of icons on the bottom of your screen. You're going to be using this a lot, so it is important to customize this and make it look and feel exactly how you want it. So we're going to tap on desktop and dock. And then first here, we have the ability to change the size of the dock. Now, of course, the smaller the size, the less screen space it's going to take, whereas the larger it is, of course, the bigger the icons and also the easier to read it's going to be. Personally, I like to have it somewhere in the middle, so I like around this size, something like that. And you have the option to also turn on magnification. This means that when you hover over with your mouse, it becomes a little bit bigger. I think many people like to have this on. Personally, I don't really need it. I prefer to have it off, keep it more simple. And speaking of simple, if you want your dock to not be visible on the screen, you also have the option to turn this menu on, which is going to automatically hide the dock when it is not in use, giving you more screen space. And then when you do need it, simply move your mouse down. It's going to quickly appear and then disappear again when you move away. So if you are about maximizing your screen space, you can definitely choose to turn this off. But I like to have mine in view to always have those apps accessible at a glance. And in the desktop and dock menu, we also have the ability here to change the default web browser. Now, I know many people are probably going to download Chrome the minute they have set up their MacBook. I do too. I actually use both Safari and Chrome. And then once you have Chrome downloaded, this is where you can set it as your default browser to change from Safari if that's what you like. However, if you do use Safari, there's one really essential setting that I definitely recommend you change within Safari. So as you can see here, I've pulled up a window and I've got a couple of tabs open. But what is really important and something I immediately changed is how the tabs are displayed in Safari. So what we're going to do is once Safari is open, we're going to click on Safari here, and then we're going to scroll to where we find settings. And then under this, we're going to tap on tabs. And here we have the tab layout option. So check this out. If you keep your eyes here at this top section, I'm going to go from the separate, which is the default, over to the compact. Check out this difference. So it's going to give you a lot more screen space. Instead of having the tabs beneath the URL bar, it's going to put those tabs alongside the URL bar, still making it super easy to access them. You can even move them around and rearrange them, as you can see, but instead of that, it takes up far less screen space and gives you a much cleaner look overall. So if you're in Safari and if you do use it like I do, I definitely recommend that you change this view. All right, and this brings me back to the system settings here. Let's take a look at some essential battery settings, as these here are really crucial. So if we go into this same menu here, we're going to scroll down to where we find battery. And then first we have the ability to turn on or off low power mode. Now, this is something that I only recommend you do if, say, you really need it. Let's say you are traveling and your battery is running low. You can choose to turn this on, but I don't recommend you always run in low power mode. It's just going to disable a lot of useful functions here on your Mac. Instead, something I do recommend you do, by the way, here, this is also where you can check your battery health. So that's currently listed as normal, which is what you want. And then if we tap on the little eye icon, you can actually see the percentage. So basically anywhere between 80 to 100% is considered normal. Once it goes well below 80, that's when you're going to start to see your performance of the battery really probably suffer, be shorter, and you may even start to see your Mac randomly shut off at times. This is normal as batteries unfortunately degrade, but that will be the time when you want to replace your battery. And instead of saying normal, it will say something like service required, I believe. And that's what you want to do. But the setting that you want to change here is to turn on optimize battery charging. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to track your charging habits. So instead of just plugging in your Mac and charging straight to 100%, it's going to look at those charging habits. So let's say you typically plug in your Mac before going to bed at say around 10 p.m. And then you unplug it in the morning at 7 a.m. when you wake up. Now in this case, what it's going to do at 10 p.m., it's going to charge from 0 to roughly 80% and then wait with the remaining 20% to closer to when you wake up at 7 a.m. Now this here does two things. One is it's going to slow the charge, it's going to stagger it more, and this is going to produce less heat and less wear on the battery, helping it last longer. And two, it means that your computer won't be sitting at that full battery capacity for as long. And this here also has a significant impact in how quickly your battery will degrade. So turning on the setting here is super crucial. You still get to use your full battery's capacity, so you don't have to worry about that. Instead, it just changes the charging habits to do it in a way that reduces the wear on the battery, which ultimately helps it last longer. And beneath that, we also have some statistics to show what your battery level has been like, as well as your screen on usage to give you an idea for how long your battery is lasting. And then here below in the options, we have one setting that I do recommend you turn on, and that is to slightly dim the display when you're on battery. So you can see here, if I unplug the charger, my display, as you can see, it's slightly dim, just going to help save a little bit of battery when you are on the go, and then bring it back up once the charger is plugged in. Great, and on the subject of saving battery, we're going to take a look at notifications, as this is going to save you a lot of battery. Now, as you can see here, this Mac has just been set up and nothing has been installed, but already I have multiple applications here that are going to want to be sending me notifications throughout the day. Now, of course, there are certain applications that are useful in getting notifications from, such as your mail or your messaging apps, but other things like your utility apps or your gaming apps, for example, shopping apps, right? They don't need to be bothering you throughout the day, as that not only is going to take up battery, right? Every time that happens, either your screen will wake, your speaker will go off, and of course it's also going to be distracting, right? You're in the middle of a task, you are working, and suddenly a notification comes up letting you know that you have a 10% discount on some shopping app that you never use. So I don't want to be bothered by that throughout the day. So what you can do is actually tap on an individual app and turn off notifications, and this will disallow notifications from showing on that specific application. Alternatively, if you still want to see notifications from a specific app but don't want to be bothered by them throughout the day, you can also choose how they are delivered. So for example, instead of allowing banners or alerts, you can simply tap on none, and then those notifications will never show live as they come in. Instead, if you tap on the clock here in the top right, they will then be listed along here, and that will allow you to still review them, say once a day if you want, but you won't be bothered throughout the day. So I will go through this and really audit your notifications app by app to make sure you only get notifications that are important, not only to save battery, but also to save you some distraction. Moving right along, let's dive into the display and optimize that further. So in this menu here, we're going to scroll in the settings menu to where we find display. Now, first we have the ability to choose the scaling. So we can either have more screen space or less screen space. Let me give you a quick preview of what this looks like. So if I say want larger text, let's go ahead and change the resolution here just to show you what that looks like. Wow, as you can see, everything is significantly larger. And this is really, it's good in a sense that it makes it easier to read and to find things. Perhaps you say have a parent or something, or someone who may have difficulty reading, but of course it does give you very little screen space, right? This small settings window now takes up nearly the entire display, where if we go back to the default, as you can see, we get a lot more screen space to work with. Now we also have the option to add even more space if we want that final option. This here I do sometimes use, especially when I'm editing video, as it just allows me to have more menus on screen at a time. But for most people, I think the default option here is good. But it's fun to kind of play around with this and see which is best for you. And beneath that, we can change the brightness. Of course, you can also use the keys on the keyboard to do that. You can manually set it here. And then under that, we have the automatic brightness option. Now, this is something that I normally speaking definitely recommend you have on. I only have it turned off here for the video, but normally speaking, I always have this on, as it makes sure that your brightness is nice and dim at night and then very bright if it needs to be during the day. And that brings us to True Tone. Now, True Tone is interesting. Check this out. If I turn this off, as you can see, my display will get a little bit cooler, a little bit more of a bluish hue. And what this basically does, True Tone, if we turn it on, makes it a little bit more warmer. So what it does is the display temperature is going to match the temperature of the lights around you. So using an ambient sensor that you'll find there next to the webcam, it's going to see that the lighting in my room is a little bit on the warmer side. So instead, it's going to make the display a bit warmer, just to make it more comfortable to look at and to read. Okay, so now that we've looked at some essential settings to change on your Mac, let's take a look at some key gestures. So the first thing I want to show you is something called mission control. So as you can see, I've got multiple windows open here, and switching between them can be a little bit tricky. So instead, a much easier way to quickly see all your open windows is to take 3 fingers and then swipe up on the touchpad. And as you can see, it's then going to show me all the open windows, making it super easy to switch between a different app. So I can go right from my calendar, back to Safari, and then back to the App Store. Now, if we activate mission control once again, you can see here we have the word desktop here at the top. If I go ahead and swipe my mouse up to the right, up to the top here, you'll see all the available desktops. At the moment we have one, but if we want to add another, simply press the plus sign here on the right. And as you can see, we can now enter into a new desktop. And what's even cooler is to quickly switch between those two desktops. We can use 3 fingers on the touchpad and swipe to the left and right to very quickly switch between your desktops. So this makes it super easy to arrange your windows. So let's say I want to enter mission control once again, swipe up to show both of my desktops, and let's say I want to keep this desktop for work, but then for gaming, so let's say the App Store, I want to click and drag that over to the second desktop, tap into it, and as you can see, I have now grouped my apps between the two desktops to sort of match their use cases. So I find this to be a really useful way to organize your windows throughout the day. Another gesture I want to show you is a 4-finger pinch outward, so like you're zooming outwards on the touchpad. Check this out. This is going to bring over the app library. So this is going to show you all the applications that are installed on your Mac. Of course, you probably have more than are listed in your docs. If you are looking for an app, this is where you're going to find it. You can also rearrange these if you like as well. You can even create multiple pages. Simply drag it over to the right, and you can do so as well. So this will give you an overview of all the applications on your Mac, and simply tap out of it by tapping away. And this brings us to some essential keyboard shortcuts. So first, to search for anything in your Mac, you can tap on this little magnifying glass on the top right of your display. An alternative, however, is to do the keyboard shortcut Command Spacebar. Simply tap that once, and as you can see, we can now search for anything on our Mac. Tap Enter to open it, and that's going to quickly allow you to retrieve files on your computer. Now, next, to quit an application, you can have 3 options really. Let's say I want to quit the App Store. I can tap on the App Store here in the top left, and I can select on Quit App Store. Or I can go to the icon in the dock, right click on that, and select Quit. However, a much quicker way to do so is to simply use the keyboard shortcut Command Q. And as you can see, that's going to instantly quit the application very easily. So you can use Command Q to quit a whole application, but what if, say, you want to just close one window, or in this case, one tab? Well, for that, you can go ahead and press Command W, and as you can see, that's then going to close just one window, or rather one tab on Safari, or one window if you only have one tab open. And this brings me to my favorite keyboard shortcut of all time on the Mac. I remember the first time I found out about this many years ago. I basically never stopped using it, and that is the best way to switch between your apps on your Mac, and that is to press and hold Command and then tap the Tab key once, and as you can see, that's going to give you a clear overview of all of your open applications. You can then tap the Tab key repeatedly to sort of cycle between them and quickly switch between specific apps. So you can see that not only does it switch between your 2 most recent apps, you can see all the open applications on your Mac, and what is even cooler is if, say, you have one app selected and you want to quit that application. See, I currently have the App Store selected there. I can quickly press on the Q, and that's then going to quit the application. Super useful. And this brings me to screenshots. Now, there's 2 ways to take screenshots on your Mac. First, you can press the Command Shift 3. That's going to take a whole screen screenshot, as you can see right there. However, you can also take a more precise screenshot by pressing Command Shift 4. And as you can see, the cursor will then turn into a little plus or a little target sign. That's going to allow you to select a portion of the display to take a screenshot. What is also neat is if we go back to Command Shift 4, we can also press the spacebar, and this will allow us to take a screenshot of a specific window or a section of the screen as well, like so. And as you can see here, our screenshots are going to be stored right on the desktop. Let me quickly pull that up and show you. There we go. So here's our screenshots. We can select on it once, press the spacebar to preview, and then cycle between the wonderful screenshots that we just took. And now I want to show you some more really neat tips and tricks here for the Mac. So as you can see, I've taken a bunch of screenshots, and quite quickly, our desktop is going to start to look a little bit messy. However, there's a really good way to organize your desktop instantly, and that is with a feature called Stack. So what you want to do is be on your desktop, then right click, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find Use Stacks. And as you can see, check out this pile of screenshots. Instantly it rearranges into one folder that is called screenshots. And if we ever want to take a look at that, simply click on it once, and it's going to show us all the files, making them super easy to go through. Simply tap on the same folder again, and as you can see, it will then collapse back into one icon, saving you a lot of desktop space, and allowing you to enjoy your wallpaper. And what is also cool is if we do have the desktop selected, we can press the keyboard shortcut Command J, and that's going to allow us here in this menu to change these icon size of the icons on our desktop. So if we want to make them more easy to find, we can make it larger or make it smaller like I usually do. You can also change the orientation of the text. I like to have it here on the right, and I usually make the text size a little bit smaller. Again, I like to save the screen space and make things look less cluttered. So this is something you can definitely customize to make the appearance of your desktop how you want it. And now let me show you how to enter full screen mode on apps and then have two apps open at once in split screen mode. So let's say here I have the App Store. Let's say I want to make this full screen. So I can press on this little green bubble here in the top left. And as you can see, that's going to full screen the application. It's going to remove the dock, remove the menu bar, and dedicate the entire screen to just this app. Now, this is super useful. I do this all the time. If say I'm editing photos or videos, I just want to focus on that one app and have all the menus showing as many showing as possible. So to really take full advantage of the screen space. And to minimize again, you want to simply move your cursor to the top and then press on that green bubble once again to shrink the page. And now I want to show you how to run two applications at once in full screen mode through split screen. So what you want to do is go over to that same bubble here, then press and hold, and that's going to open up this secondary menu, allowing you to tile the window either to the left or right. So let's say here I tile it to the right, then you want to select on a second window to open alongside it. And as you can see, we now have two windows running in full screen mode here on my Mac. And what is also neat is in the middle here, you have this little divider. You can move this to the left or right to dedicate more or less screen space to a specific application. This here is super useful. What I often like to do is I'll have, say, one half of my screen dedicated to a Pages document where I'm taking notes, and then the other half to, say, a video I'm watching or an article I'm reading or something like that. So I think for students, if you're researching, this is a really useful setup as well. And then to exit out of this, simply swipe up with your cursor, press on that green bubble again, and then we can do that to both applications and then exit the split view. And this brings me to one of my favorite hidden features of macOS, and that is called hot corners. Let me show you how to set this up. So we're going to go back into system settings, and then we're going to scroll to where we find desktop and dock, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, and this is where we find hot corners. So we'll go ahead and enter that, and this will allow you to essentially assign a function to each of the corners of your display. So let me give you an example here. Let's say on the bottom right, I want to activate mission control, and then here on the bottom left, I want to show the desktop. Top right here, let's put the display to sleep, and then we have let's do a quick note on the top left. So I've now assigned a function to each corner. So if I simply move my cursor to the bottom right of the screen, it's automatically going to activate mission control, which is even quicker than using that 3-finger swipe we looked at earlier. Simply boom, swipe down, there you go, you're in mission control. Want to quickly see your desktop, go to the bottom left, right there you see your desktop to say quickly preview or pull up one of the wonderful screenshots that we looked at earlier. And then here at the top, we can also have a quick note. This allows you to quickly type out a note if, say, you are browsing the web and you want to note down an idea. And then lastly here on the top right, if we swipe down or swipe up, it's going to then lock the display. Super useful feature that I really like, and you can see there's a bunch of controls to choose from. You can also choose to just use a few of the corners. So actually, personally, I only use the bottom two. So I have one for mission control and one for the desktop so that I'm not accidentally triggering it. If say I need to access menus here in the top of my display, but for the bottom corners, I think this is especially wonderful to use. So there you go, guys. That is how to properly set up your Mac. Let me know if you have any questions at all. As always, I will leave the purchase links down in the description. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend watching my video in which I review 3 very common Mac accessories that you should not buy that actually harm your computer. So I'll leave that video on screen right now. Definitely recommend you check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.